Okay. Well, welcome back, Sarah. We're excited. I'm excited to have this next conversation in public with you as we're designing the new group around your book, Selling Like We're Human.
Yeah.
The plan today was to talk through what I call the VIP promise, the VIP process, which is the vibe promise, the ideal participant, and the program promise for the group. So are you okay continuing with that plan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's talk about it.
So the reason we start here is because almost everything you do from here on out will be influenced by kind of the decisions that you make around the VIP. Um, and it's not that we're like set in stone and we can't change it as we're going on, but it's things like the language that you use on your landing page will be impacted by the vibe promise, right? What is the essence of the group that you're creating? It's things like how long is your group? What are you actually getting them to do in the group are all influenced by what I call the program promise. And so why I start here is this is really the foundation and really helps us to make decisions as we move forward. So when I say vibe promise, what I'm talking about is kind of the essence or the vibe or the environment that we're creating. And part of that is really related to you and how you show up and just kind of the type of groups and communities and spaces you create. But some of that is also around what you want them to experience with each other, but also how they show up. And
Hmm.
so let's start just with if I were to say to you, what's your vibe promise with this kind of intro to it, what would you say you think the vibe promise might be for this group?
Hmm. Well, the first word that came to mind was care.
Mm.
I think we mentioned that word before. So deep care for participants, yeah, really understanding how to sell and doing it in a way that feels good to them. So that care that this is not just a program that, fills my bank account, but it's like, no, I really hope and want participants to step into selling because there's like I know and you know that we're going to attract healers and change makers and transition makers. So all of these people that we are so needing right now. And so that's where for me this deep care comes from. So
Hmm.
care is one of the things. And then yeah, deep thinking. That's another thing that I often call my people deep thinkers because I guess we think deeply and we care deeply. So we are not just, living through the day and not being aware of what's happening. So we think deeply about who we are, we think deeply about our clients, we think deeply about our offerings. We're very sensitive to yeah, to other people and to the change we're creating. So that is the vibe. I guess that's part of the vibe. Um, most people who come to me, they have done a lot of these programs and stuff already. And so what they say when or what I want them to say, if this is the first program they're doing with me and with you this time, is to yeah, really feel like that felt real.
Mm.
This was us just being real. So there's no shame about not selling or not being good enough about selling or having to have, certain numbers that were already set, like none of that. Um, I think that goes together with deep care, but it's like this realness, and it's like, no, here we are talking about because selling is obviously talking about money, and that's not always easy, and a lot of people don't really do a good job of that. So I'm really hoping that we're going to do a good job of that.
Yeah, and what I hear you saying in that with, that deep and thinking and deep care is really the safety of the environment. Like it's this
Right,
safe space where they can be honest and can be real about like what has sales looked like for them in the past, what are their kind of hopes and dreams around it, and how do they make it feel good for them, right?
right,
Instead of I'm
right,
I'm imagining this difference. One of, I started my career outside of university in sales, and at one point in time I was sent to like the, advanced selling program down in Atlanta, and like, everybody shows up in their suits and like, like just the like role play and like the scripting and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just comparing that kind of vibe promise to what you're talking about here, where what I love about your approach is it's this right fit for them, right? It's
right.
it's about finding out how they sell that feels good for them, that feels good for their clients.
Yeah,
And so there's this safety part that comes up, there's that realness, and there's spaciousness for everybody to be who they are and be where they are, but also to use the space to find what fits for them.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And still having some, groundedness. So grounded in some kind of business information that we're completely readapting.
Yeah.
Um, because we're looking at how we are wired to sell. But there's still information that we need to have clarity on regarding our ideal client, regarding our offering, regarding the language we use in our offering. So we're not trying to manipulate, but we're still trying to get our people's interest because otherwise we are not selling and that's not the point of this exercise. So yeah,
Yeah.
having really a bit of both.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. The next part of the VIP process is ideal participant. And so you talk about this in your book about, who are you working with? And it's the same here. What I find sometimes when we have groups, especially if we have a body of work like you do, sometimes our groups end up being really tailored to a certain population of who we usually talk to. And other times it's kind of like, oh no, it's for anybody that's been kind of in my community, approach that type of stuff. So when you think about this group, how would you describe your ideal participant, knowing that you already alluded to change makers and healers and practitioners? So I'm assuming that will come up through this too.
Yeah, yeah. So really, I put them all into the change maker basket, but what that means is anybody who needs to show up right now to help humanity transition into this new world that we want to create. And that there's, so many different things that can be that you are a consultant working with organizations, that can be that you are a coach working, on mental health, that can be that you're a healer working on bodily transition, like bodily health, and like anything that yeah, you want to contribute on an individual level, but you know that this individual level also helps humanity at large. I think for me, it's yes, the individual level, but what does that mean if you have helped this person on an individual level? How does this person change so that they are create helping us create the new world? So that's how I'm thinking about change makers. And so yeah, people like that. Um, it's funny because more and more I have people talk to me and say, well, you're saying that you're a business coach, and I'm not really feeling like I'm a business person. I'm like, yeah, that's interesting because yeah, more and more I'm not even sure I want to call myself a business coach anymore. So it really is this new way of doing business. Like I talk in the business like we're human book. It's like, well, is it a business? in the old way of thinking things, maybe it's not a business, but it's still your life's work and how you're contributing to this world. And so,
Yes.
yeah, just kind of like we all still need to sell, even in the new world, we will. And so, how do we do that? Starting 2026 and beyond. So, yeah, it's for those kind of people who are interested to sell their life's work.
I love
Yeah.
that. And one thing that I'm curious about is does when you think about this group, is it people who have already been doing it for a while or, they've tried some things, they have a general idea of their offer, or is it for people who are kind of newer to it and thinking, "Oh, how do I even go out into the world with this?"
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I was actually thinking about that last week, and I thought I never have written a blog post about the difference between marketing and selling. And so then I was like, well, I got to do that because that's key because I have the Marketing Like We're Human program and now this new program about selling. And people are going to need to understand, well, which one do I join, right? And so the difference really between marketing and selling is that if you are completely new to your business, to your life's work, you probably need to start with marketing. You need to put invitations out into the world, let people know that you exist. Find your ideal client first. And so all of this work we're doing in the Marketing Like We're Human program. So you need to have invitations out there. And then that's when you're stepping into, am I ready to sell? Is when people start to ask, well, how can I work with you? What is it that you're selling? Um, that's when you're ready to kind of hone in on the skills on selling and selling is really helping people making a buying decision, where marketing is all about the invitations. So that's the difference as well. So to answer your question is like, yeah, selling is the next level. Is like you have already done some of the marketing, some of the warming up that people are aware of your work. They're aware of their problem as well. Because if
Mm,
they're not aware of their problem and you come and sell to them, that's going to be very awkward. So, so yes, it's kind of like the next level
yeah.
where you're like, I've been marketing and putting all these blog posts out and LinkedIn and all of that, but still I don't see enough sales coming in. That's
Yeah.
when people are ready for that
I think
course.
that's a really helpful distinction and then
Mhm.
helps us to identify that ideal participant. So it's like as you said, they've been making invitations and now it's about they want to kind of sell more through those invitations and through the connections they've made with that
Yeah.
invitation.
What's going to be hard, I think, is helping people understand that that's where they're at. Because when I put out the Marketing Like We're Human book, I think I wrote that in the Selling Like We're Human book in the intro. People are like, yeah, but what about selling? What we really want to do is selling. And
Yes.
so I'm thinking that there's going to be a lot more interest for selling than for marketing. And so it's going to be interesting how I handle that when people are like, yeah, but I want to do this
Yes.
program.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I don't, maybe it's not wrong because it helps. Like I don't do so much in depth the human design in the Marketing Like We're Human program. So
Yeah.
that could be helpful. But there needs to be, yeah, really a reminder that they need to put out more invitations
Yeah.
because just wanting to sell, if there's nobody to buy from you, then that's going to be hard.
Yeah, I really connect with that just in my line of work. It's similar. in the sense of people think they have a marketing problem with their group or a selling problem, right? They think, oh, it's about getting more people into it. And what I kind of say is like, actually, there's like a foundational part. What is your group about? How is it designed? What is the results and connection that people really get? Because if you don't have that, even if you find a way to sell it, if you don't have a great group experience that people really, connect and get results, you're not getting referrals. You're constantly trying to find new people for it. And that's how it makes it, unsustainable. And so
Right.
it's that same kind of distinction of we think we have a selling problem, but really it's, do we understand, have we done kind of the beginning parts in order
Yeah.
to get to that point where we're like, yeah, no, we're actually ready to sell. And how do we want to sell?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Very cool. Okay, and then the final one is the program promise. And this is the promise about what they'll accomplish and or experience in the group. So it's kind of like at the end of the group, what will they have accomplished or experienced in it that you can kind of confidently say, yeah, this is where we're taking you.
Hmm.
What would your first kind of reaction be to that?
Confidence. So
Yeah.
that's the first thing is confidence in having worked on their offering and feeling like, yes, I'm proud of this offering. I can sell that and feel good about what I'm receiving because I just know that this is going to help people. So confidence is the first thing. A complete reframe of selling and how that could look like from your corporate sales, training
Yes.
to something completely different. Um, and then, yeah, to me, the reframe is all about having the right language. And so it's so funny because I speak 5 languages fluently, and I always thought, well, a lot of people do in Switzerland, big deal. And now I'm really realizing how this language theme also fits into marketing and selling and understanding the power of words and the importance of using certain words and um, especially in our offering. And since this is a program for change makers, the key aha that I see when I work with clients one-on-one is this um, idea of not just talking about what they think people want, but actually talking about what the ideal client wants, right? And not just about what they know that they need. So this whole concept of selling them what they want and giving them what they need and adapting their offerings that way. That's part of that promise outcome. And just kind of like kind of like this feeling of a big, huge relief and permission slip to sell their way and not having a script and not having to follow some kind of weird process that doesn't align with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Two things that I really hear there is one is, you know, their own understanding of their offer, but also like I would say their love of their own offer, like their belief in what they're offering, how they've put it together, that type of thing. But then also there's that piece of and selling it in a way again that feels really good for them. So it's that clarifying and kind of putting that really understanding confidently what your offer is and just as confidently knowing how you're going to sell it and put it out in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And then I
Mhm.
would add like really um like if I think about my outline that I have in my head for week 5, it's really like zooming into the zeitgeist of this new way of doing business and and how we as human beings are going to be connecting in a different way and that actually the old way of selling is going to come over as so rude to
Mm,
our people. Like
Yeah.
there's still going to be, a bunch of people who work that way. But if we show up and we still use the old way that we've learned from someone, well, it's going to come over as completely rude and and obnoxious. And so we really just understanding this is part of the evolution. This is not just us being the weird ones out, but this is
Yeah.
starting to be a new way of doing business. And yes, I'll bring in some of the woo astrology and human design is pointing us into that direction. And I think it's just so good to have that knowing that we're not the weird ones out, but we are the new leaders. We're showing
Yes.
the way.
Yeah. I love that. I love the framing of that too, because it really is, it what comes across for me in that is one is, making it okay in terms of everything that's happened before then with you and like whatever your relationship to selling has been and all that kind of stuff. But then also recognizing that we are in a transition period and that's uncomfortable and that means we have, we're trying new things, but the invitation here is there's actually something that fits for you going forward and fits for the people you're here to work with and fits to the work that you're doing. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, it might be uncomfortable. Yeah, you have to kind of try new things on and make them work for you, but it is truly for that 2026 and beyond, which is part of the
yeah,
language you have around the group.
mm, yeah,
Yeah. Love that. So typically what happens kind of at this point is I would say, hey, pick two, three ideal participants, people who you would love to have in the group and walk them through this a little bit. More the program promise than anything, but you have a conversation with them, something similar to, I'm thinking about putting a group out there. We're going to really focus on understanding our offer and getting confident in that, and then leaning into our right way of selling. It's for people who are in that point where they're looking to change kind of how they approach selling and just have a conversation with people to see, hey, are there indications that this is something that we're on the right path? Now, for you, I think you're in a unique situation because you've been releasing these podcast issues. You've already gotten quite a bit of response of people saying, yeah, I'm on the right path. So I will leave it with you in terms of if you have kind of those specific conversations. But the reason we stop at this point for that is because to your point of, sometimes we're building things that we know people need, but not what they want. It's the same with groups. And so we can put a ton of energy and effort in building this amazing group that no one actually wants. And we don't want to waste that energy. We don't want to waste that time. And so this is the point in the process that we get some confirmation from those ideal participants. I always say the people who, if they said yes to being in your group, you would be so excited and you'd call your best friend and be like, you won't believe it. And it's just the confirmation that you're on the right path before kind of investing any more time and attention to what you're
right,
building. Because two things will usually happen in those conversations. One is people will be, kind of meh about it. Very rarely will someone be like, that's not like, that's crap, or, all those kinds of things. But they'll kind of be like, I don't really understand, or like they'll give you kind of a lackluster response. And, you can ask them some questions to kind of piece out what they're trying to say. Or on the other side, people will be like, oh, yeah, no, that sounds good. Make sure you tell me when that's coming. And
right.
when you get those indicators, first of all, you can kind of walk away confident that, like, oh, I can even create a wait list out of this potentially. But you also start to build out kind of this excitement around it for yourself too, of like, yeah, I am building something that's real. I am building something that people want, which helps us as we kind of start putting the pieces together.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense. I mean, I've created and built so many different things that in the end nobody wanted that
We
you're
all
like,
have.
oh my God, should have had these conversations first, right? So so yeah, and yes, I mentioned this a couple of times in my email list and on the podcast. And yes, I did get probably more than I've ever gotten without even having announced the course. So I do think there's interest. And I actually think it's that beyond 2026 or 2026 and beyond that gets people curious. So yes, it's the selling, but at the same time, if I was just putting out another how to sell program, people would be like not so interested, I
Yeah.
think. Because you and I talked about this before, and all vulnerability. Things are kind of rough right now. We don't know where we're going, and everything is up in the air. And so I think it's that 2026 and beyond. People are like, where the heck are we going? Am I even going to be in business anymore? And
Yeah.
so they're curious about the new ways of doing things.
Yeah.
Um, and that gets me super excited that people are curious because, well, hell yes, we need to continue, running our businesses, but we need to do it in a different way. And probably not following the big gurus that tell us you can have, a 6, 7 figure big business and sit on the beach, but kind of like go smaller, go more impactful, go more intimate, and
Yeah.
and yeah, that's what I'm excited about. So again, if you're listening to this on the podcast and then you're like, I'd like to have this conversation with you, Sarah, or with Kerry, well, let us know. Look us up on LinkedIn and would love to have this conversation about whether this is something that is interesting to you.
I love that. Awesome. So we will end it here and just as put a seed out there for what's next. What's next is we're going to start thinking about what are some of the what I call cornerstone do activities. So what are we going to actually do in order to deliver on that program promise? So that's what we'll talk about next session.
Cool. All
Yay.
right.
Thanks,
Speak to you
Sarah.
next week. Take
Talk
care.
to you soon. Bye.